The afternoon ring fires added to the chaos that is now southeast Los Angeles. Riots, which had quieted down during the dawn, sprang again into full-scale violence this morning. Literally hundreds of cars were overturned and wrecked. Things taken were about 100 firearms with ammunition. Cars by the dozens were burned. Their occupants were pulled out and beaten. Molotov cockpits have been flying through the air, carrying their flaming destruction. Rioters attacked white and Negroes alike. 148 arrests for theft, shooting, and throwing missiles. And this is almost unbelievable in view of all this. No verified fatality. Streets were so littered with rocks and broken glass that even patrol have injured probably well over 200 persons. Authorities can't even be sure of that. Looting was very widespread. Among broken glass, bricks, torn up pavement, looted stores, fires, and incredible destruction. Car windshields and windows in the area were cracked or entirely missing. Newsmen seemed prey of many of the rioters. Numbers of news cars were wrecked. 2 newsmen working for the network division of last night, in spite of all that 900 what already has happened. Last night, shortly after 7, unabated to this moment. Films and reports on this, the worst riot in our city's history, later on this news hour. Tonight, fearful of what new horror that could bring, police and citizens already battered from its unrestrained terror of the previous night. Moment. A few numbers relating to the injuries and damage have come from the 77th Police Division. Hundreds of cars wrecked, smashed, and burned. At least 75 persons injured. 33 Los Angeles policemen injured. 1 fireman, 1 highway patrol officer injured. Has had difficulty getting through. Tires were flattened by the dozens. It is possible to be extremely critical of the leadership of the city of Los Angeles at this time. This is one of the most critical days in the history of the city. And we find that the leadership of the city is virtually absent. Mayor Riots, for example, was out of the city for much of the day, meeting political commitments, which he had made some time before. It would be expected that on a date of this sort, he would remain here and cancel political commitments up in San Francisco. But apparently he had a speaking tour up there and decided to go ahead and make the run, coming back here later. Now, they were talking National Guard late yesterday afternoon and throughout much of tonight. In fact, a great many persons in the community thought the National Guard would be an excellent idea should the authorities need help and should the problems in that sector continue. National Guard discussions going on, and yet it was not until late this afternoon that the senior officials of the state of California, those who could call the Guard, finally came down here to make their in-person view and inspection of the area. Chief Parker had made the request earlier. Mayor Riots from the north apparently called for the Guard. But the Guard commander and the state's lieutenant general came down here on a leisurely plane. We do not know why a jet was not used or better schedules for themselves. The 2 men should have been alerted last night to the problem, meaning Lieutenant Governor Anderson and also the chief of the National Guard for the state. They should have been alerted last night, and their own sense of responsibility and duty, presumably, should have required their presence here in the city either late last night or first thing this morning, so these difficulties would not continue. Instead, they kept their own leisurely, patient, scheduled consultation and decisions, and finally got here late this afternoon. The Guard was called out within the past hour. That is no way to attempt to control a situation of this sort. Now let's go on and look at the visual matter, Wes, if you're ready, please. We are going into the third KABC. Ralph Mayer and Ray Fahrenkopf were beaten last night, and Ray still is in very serious condition, lost a number of teeth. Today, the burning of cars continues within the sealed-off area. As these films are taken, snipers, we were preparing for a helicopter shot again, but there were snipers on the ground firing shots at the copter. And later, our crews would report that they could see men down below racing out of their properties or homes or apartments into the street, taking aim. They would see the weapon recoil. They would see a puff of smoke. Luckily, the copter was not hit. And the FAA, the Federal Aviation Agency, ordered us and other low-flying aircraft not to go over that area because it's simply unsafe. A bullet hole through the gas tank of a copter could be the end. We have no idea how many bullets were fired at our copter, but we're very grateful our people were back safely. We thought last night that we would not send our crews into the area, that would be proper. We had no realization, really, that there would be this attempt to fire from the ground into the air. But when we learned of that, we also took the added safety precaution. These crews are down. The flames today burning quickly, fiercely through a number of buildings. 6 buildings were on fire at one time. Police had to force a path through rioters to get fire equipment onto the scenes. A great many precious, not just moments or minutes, but hours were lost as authorities tried to get in. Police forcing back crowds so firemen could do their own work. The biggest development of the whole riot, of course, was announced about 45 minutes ago from downtown. The state's lieutenant general indicated, the state's lieutenant governor indicated he was responding to the appeal by Los Angeles authorities, and he will be sending in the National Guard. I don't know how many members of it will be going in, and we hope to find that out very, very shortly. Nor do we know exactly what equipment will be involved, but presumably full gear, bayonets, and so on. Beyond that, we don't know. It is worth noting again that the leadership of the city was operating almost in a vacuum downtown. Key council members are absent. The mayor of the city up in the Bay Area, the senior officer for the city of Los Angeles remaining on the job was Chief Parker, and he was conducting this by remote control and also by directions and instructions being given to him from the Bay Area by an absent mayor. We'll continue the news hour in just a moment. Tempers in Santo Domingo weren't as unmotivated as those in Watts, but they did get their message across to the Organization of American States and U.S. Representative Ellsworth Bunker. ABC's Louis Ruckeiser reports from there.
Beware Yankees, beware Yankees, comes the chant. Yankees get out, Yankees get out. Rebel soldiers kept a crowd of hundreds of shouting leftists in line for a while, but soon they surged down the street in front of Camaño's glass-walled headquarters. While American Ambassador Ellsworth Bunker and two other OAS envoys were closeted with their leader inside, the rebels listened to an impassioned harangue of their own against the OAS peace proposals, foreign journalists, and Americans in general.
Following the demonstration, rebel leaders apologized to Bunker, and the OAS resumed its negotiations between the rebels and the rival junta regime. We've had a number of calls, and we're very grateful for them, just from viewers and friends and persons interested in the condition of the ABC network sound man. This is Ray Frenkoff, who was with Ralph Mayer last night, and who was the more badly beaten of the two men. And they want to know what his condition is. We just checked moments ago, and just to give you an idea, though, at the height of the riot last night, he was beaten up by two whole waves of rioters. 7 of his teeth were kicked in, literally, just kicked right in. Both eyes were blackened, one eye still is closed. He was stoned, he was struck with a bottle, and then as he was going down, he was stomped on. And during the stomping, he was robbed of all his possessions, watch, money, even his notebook was taken. Today he's recovering gradually. He's expected to remain in the hospital for at least 3 more days, and we certainly wish him well. His partner we saw in the hallway earlier, and he was still stunned by the events of last night, the things that had happened not just to himself, but to Ray, too. Word from Sacramento is that Governor Brown plans to cut short his European vacation so he can return over here in view of the situation in Los Angeles. The leadership of the city government present in town on this most critical day in the history of the city of Los Angeles. Pete noted that in city council this morning there were only 8 members. And I don't know, we just don't know at this moment how many were absent on vacation, how many were ill. Mr. Timberlake, the council president, is in the hospital presently, and another council member also is in the hospital. And let's see... Tom Shepard, Councilman Shepard, was therefore in charge of the council. Mayor Yorty yesterday, during another crucial day, the second most crucial day, was down in San Diego for a while making a speech there. Up in San Francisco today making another speech. And Mayor Yorty's key aide, his chief deputy, Joe Quinn, presently is vacationing or junketing over in Europe. Quinn, of course, had no way of getting back here on time, but others in city government did. Another city councilman left on a junket today for the East. This is not a way to attend to the affairs of this government on this particular date. Pete?
Thank you, Bax. Los Angeles city planners have decided to wait before approving plans for a rapid transit system. Planning Director Calvin Hamilton, however, is very aware of the need for such a system.
I think the principal problem which has been identified to me as a problem in rapid transit is the fact that Los Angeles must consider itself as an automobile-oriented city, that there is not the demand for it in the right locations, that it has been designed as a rail system primarily, and that it won't do the job that's needed anyway.
What about financing?
Well, obviously, many people feel that the automobile owner should not in any sense subsidize a rapid transit system which he doesn't want to use in the first place.
The pros and cons of an area-wide city rapid transit system in just a moment. Why did the Planning Commission decline to pass on the rapid transit study?
Well, I think there were 2 principal reasons. There were many different points of view coming out of the commission. I think, secondly, that some of the members felt that they should not get into the issue of how should it be financed. They felt it was outside of their realm of responsibility. And third, they really wanted more time to study the suggestions that had been submitted by the department.
Commissioner Flanagan raised two, I think, very pertinent points, two objections. One, that no one has yet refuted the Auto Club study, which maintains that only 2% of the automobiles in this area would be taken off the road after a rapid transit system was implemented. And two, that the principle or precept of high-rise developments, which would necessarily spring up around the rapid transit stops in far-flung corners of the system, would perhaps be detrimental to the community as a whole. How do you feel about those 2 points?
Well, I feel on the first item that probably a reputable alternative in terms of engineering and in an impartial position is not taking a look at, on the one hand, the recommendations of the Transit Authority and what will happen if they get a rapid transit, and secondly, the Auto Club's contention. I think there are corollary things that the Auto Club really hasn't included, which are public assets, not just in spite of only 2% of the traffic might be taken off our freeways. So I think even if we would make a decision today, I don't think we'd get any results for 5 years from now. Well, if you only look at the freeways today, you know how crowded they are, and you know how crowded some of our major streets are, plus the fact that through an effective transit system, it's possible to shape the direction and growth of the city and its development in a form that you predetermined, in a sense. And so that it's most vital, if we're going to reshape the community in what should be its best development, that we need to begin to make the decisions now so that in 5 years we begin to get the results, and in 10 years we can see the results.
While the politicians plan and the commuters complain, experts like Mr. Hamilton are steadily being ignored, and time is rapidly running out for a rapid transit system in the foreseeable future. Back?
Thank you, Pete. These are notes here from two fronts in the riot situation. We'll get to them after a word for Nestea. An apparently motiveless double slaying at 2015 East Olympic Boulevard last night. Alex Montanez and Jack Kimball were both employees of the Transport Distributing Company. They were shot down as they arrived for work on the night shift. Police said that Kimball had been getting something from the trunk of his car when he was hit. The other man, Montanez, was gunned down as he stepped from his car. Other workers on the job could offer police little information. The weapon used in the double killing, apparently a high-powered rifle by an unknown sniper. These are the latest notes on the several fronts of the rioting. There's looting at this moment at 88th and Broadway, and the looting is spreading considerably. At 51st and Manchester, a car, one of several, is burning. At 103rd and Compton, a Molotov cocktail was thrown a short time ago. And in that area are about 3,000 or 4,000 rioters, that one sector alone, and a fireman was hospitalized there. Now, about the National Guard, we have this information so far. All hospital units, radio crews, and logistic crews of the National Guard have been activated. That is the guard that's assigned to Southern California. And I don't know how many hours it'll take for them to get on duty. There's a riot of about 200 persons at the location of Manchester and 88th Street. The Watts sector, they feel, is in grave difficulty at this time, and police expect the rioting and the looting tonight to spread to a large section of southeast Los Angeles. Around 100 felony arrests were made today, mainly for looting. A number of pawn stores, pawn shops are logical targets for rioters, because there they can get guns and ammunition, but in many cases, the police have been successful. They prevented the looting of 200 rifles from several of the pawn shops in the area. On Avalon, between 102nd and 110th, and between 16th and a block of 103rd, there are major riot sections involved at this time. Governor Brown was announced a short time ago as being on his way back here from his vacation abroad. Let's go on to a touching matter, Wes, having nothing to do with this particular problem. It was seen earlier. An apartment at 2701 Wilshire had several small trees planted there last week. Today, one of the trees saved the life of a 3-year-old boy, Thomas Pop. The child had been playing in the bedroom of his 5th-floor apartment. His mother left the room. Somehow Tommy managed to unfasten the screen, and he fell 5 stories. One of the new trees was right under the window and helped break his fall. The youngster was rushed to Central Receiving Hospital, then transferred to General Hospital, however, still in serious condition. We will continue after the word from Metro Cal. Of question of an official residence for the vice president came up today in Washington, and Oklahoma Senator Mike Monroney introduced a bill to establish such a residence and told why.
And so after all these years, I think it's high time that the second most important office in the entire world be given a residence suitable and fitting for the responsibilities of that office.
The Admiral's House on Observatory Hill tops the list of places being considered should Monroney's bill be passed. At the same time, the vice president told how he felt about such a move, and he had views.
My position has been that this is not a matter for me to pass judgment upon, except to say that I think that it would be well in the days ahead for the Vice President of the United States, whoever he may be, to have an official residence. I think he could maybe do his job a little better. I've made it quite clear that Mrs. Humphrey and I have a fine home that we like. It's comfortable, it's ours, and it is home. It's not a public building, it's private. We're not anxious to move from that home or from this job. So,
word a moment ago that a child, just a tiny 2-year-old child, might be trapped near a burning building. This particular building involved is a commercial one, Carl's Shoe Store, that's burning out on Imperial in the general riot area. We don't know if the rioters themselves will make an effort to save the child or what can be done here, but we'll try to find out on that. I was surprised to see such a small figure being involved on behalf of the National Guard. They say that the guardsman, the head of the National Guard for the state, says he expects to supply only between 500 to 1,000 men. Already on the job, of course, are about 900 city policemen, and many persons had thought that units larger than just, say, a battalion strength would be required in this area because about 150 blocks are involved. We'll continue in just a moment. The station's phones have been extremely busy today by persons apprehensive about the situation on the riot, and among the calls we got in the newsroom around 3 today, and this was the general text of the call from a young girl. Quote, "I'm watching television. I'm watching my father's business burning down. What will happen to us? No one seems to care. What will happen to us? Can't somebody please do something? Can't they be stopped?" And then she suddenly became hysterical. She was quite upset during the call, hysterical at that point, and she was unable to continue. We have no further information about the condition of the little child. I'm sure that since it is known, some rescue effort can be made and that common sense will prevail in that area, but we'll try to find out. We're going to break away here for a quarter hour. We'll have all developments as they occur, and we'll continue then after first Peter Jennings, or really Bob Young from New York.
We continue the widest range of information in California television. This is part 3 of the News Hour from Los Angeles and New York.
In an action that easily is at least 24 hours overdue, the National Guard, they say, is about to go into action. They say some elements of it should be moved into some sort of a position within the hour. I do not know what elements these are. There were earlier announcements by us that hospital units, some radio units, and so on are being called. How readily they can be organized, I do not know. It is quite likely that individual members of the Guard, knowing they might be called on to serve, perhaps have kept themselves in readiness, anticipating any form of official order, which should have come yesterday, but didn't come until late this afternoon. Red X units, I don't know who they are said to be available within the hour, and other units are being readied. There is word that private investigation firms and private detective firms, plant guards, are being called on for additional personnel beyond the men already on their lists to serve as armed guards to prevent possible looting in additional sections of the general area that's involved. And in many cases, these guard units or guard organizations are being called upon to not just double or triple their size, but increase it by 10 or 20-fold to provide that many extra armed personnel. We do not know if there are proper responses to these requests for armed guards to serve for businesses in the area, but in any event, the requests are being placed by businesses who are fearful not just of looting, but also seeing their entire firms go up in smoke, literally. Records, monies, and all. We're hopeful of getting more information on the Guard, so not only Guard members, but also their families and persons interested in protection will know. I stated earlier, and I would like to repeat again, that I am disappointed or surprised at the low figure of Guardsmen being called out initially. Apparently it'll be somewhat less than 1,000, between 500 and 1,000, and if the area involved is 150 square blocks, unless they look extremely ominous and are remarkably well equipped and can frighten the rioters to death, a figure that size really can't do too much. All right, let's go on ahead with a light-hearted piece from yesterday, filmed actually at the circus yesterday. This was a moment on film, sort of aspersed. This was at the sports arena, the Barnum and Bailey Circus. Vince Williams talking to a unique young man, the 4-year-old son of the late Clark Gable, John Clark Gable.
You go to school? Look at me. You go to school?
Yeah.
What school do you go to?
To the farm camp.
Huh?
Yeah.
What are you waiting for to see in the circus today? What do you like the best?
A lion.
The lion?
Yeah. What other lion? Who else?
Okay, we'll let you watch the lion. You want me to go away now?
Yeah.
You really want me to go away?
Yeah.
So Vince did. We're not sure, but we think that's not only the first interview, but perhaps the first motion picture film taken commercially of the young son, John Clark Gable, and taken yesterday. It would be interesting to know what other businesses are affected by the riot situation besides those immediately in the area. Here's the circus, for example, continuing on. Our person's apprehensive of going out at night. We don't know what the situation is in Los Angeles City, and some announcements from City Hall would be helpful at this time. We'll continue after a word for Gladrap. During the early morning lull in the riots, while it lasted, some Negro leaders met at the Ambassador to talk with the press. They included comedian Dick Gregory, who was injured last night. Assemblyman Dimely spoke first.
The police must be blamed for everything that happened, but I do say this, that the absence of the police last night resulted in a great deal of looting and burning. For 4 hours, I repeat, 4 hours, I stayed on the telephone calling the newspapers, the wire services and the police to come and provide some sort of protection to the people traveling in that area and to the citizens of that area, and to no avail.
Mervyn, yesterday at that meeting which was called, the Negro leaders said that if the police would stay out of that area, the rioting would subside. Now, this doesn't jibe with what you're just telling us. If the police stayed out and you still had riots, how do you gel those two things?
At 6 o'clock, I traveled that area and everything was calm. I remarked to my administrative assistant that the presence of large numbers of helmeted policemen was not conducive to good community relations. Now, had they not been there, I feel that this would not have happened. But after it did happen, then they did not come in an area where they should have been.
Dick Gregory spent 5 hours last night walking through the riot-torn area, pleading with rioters to go home.
Moved in, we withdrew and moved back across the street because we have no identification to distinguish us from any group that's standing on the corner. So in the process of moving back, the police moved in. We were standing behind the police's line when they were shooting at the police, and this is when I was hit. And we worry about tonight, but it is now before 10 o'clock, and we have many hours between now and tonight. Now, if we're going to throw our hands up and say it's going to happen tonight, we got to work with this just like a doctor works with a patient until it dies.
Robert Hall, as a civil rights spokesman, he was asked why newsmen had been singled out for such rough treatment.
They say that you white reporters are not going to report the news the way it is, as far as the policemen grabbing Negro women off the street or grabbing Negro kids off of the street and beating them 5 and 10 people. So they say you're going to lie to the news, and so therefore they're going to give you something to report. They'll beat you, and then you report that because you tell them that you have beat.
In a more sophisticated way.
You watched the television reporting. Did you see what we put on last night about the problem? Put our answer. Put our answer.
There's no reporter had his.
Dick Gregory didn't have as much time as he had thought to try to arrive at a truce because it was just shortly after that press conference we saw that the fires were breaking out on 107th Street. And as our afternoon grows late, authorities are increasingly concerned about the number of fires and handguns known to be in the hands of the rioters. Authorities are fearful of what the hours of darkness will bring. There has been no real end of violence since early morning. Throughout the day, the tempo has been quickening. Roadblocks have just been moved to Century Boulevard on the north. They will extend from San Pedro on the west to Stanford Avenue on the east, and further film and other reports in just a moment. Now, it's our understanding that there's a major riot at this moment going on at Manchester and Broadway, and the crowd in that sector reportedly tearing down awnings, breaking windows, and looting. And this is 3 to 4 miles from the main riot scene, so it is spreading. There had been threats earlier today. There were just rumors and reports, but nonetheless threats that the rioting could break out in other parts of the city. We don't know if it is a genuine threat, if it is a genuine threat, in what manner it would develop by osmosis such as this, or just spring up in lightning-like fashion throughout the rest of the metropolitan area. We have no idea. We understand that Lieutenant Governor Anderson is holding a press conference at 6:30 tonight. Earlier today, he announced it is evident that the police of Los Angeles no longer can control the situation. Therefore, he's calling in the Guard. It is our understanding that Negroes at this moment are preparing for the National Guard's arrival on the scene, and some of the following preparations are being made by those who riot. They are making up stockpiles of gasoline bombs. There presently are between 500 and 1,000 looters in the area of 88th and Avalon, reportedly looting gasoline stations at this moment. There's also the report of rioting at 88th and Hoover. An officer was attacked at Broadway in Manchester. They're trying at this moment to get that officer out. They're very short of police officers, and they're blocking off other sectors to help introduce the National Guard to the scene. Let's continue in just a moment. We pause first a word for, of all things, sleepies. There's not too much to be said about the weather when one city is seething from within. Nothing lighthearted, certainly. The facts for tomorrow: the high will go way up to an expected 97. That's at Civic Center, so much worse out in other areas. Tonight's low will be higher, an uncomfortable 70. Some thunderstorms are predicted tonight, but they won't help cool because they'll be out in the mountainous areas. Last night, Vince Williams talked to her. She is Kathy Kirsch, the bride of television's Ben Casey. She was rehearsing for an appearance on Shindig.
Edwards, or Ben Casey, they call her for short, maybe. Her name is Kathy Kirsch, the wife of Ben Casey. How many years have you been married now?
2 months.
Got married in April. This is August.
Got married in June.
Vince thought that maybe Kathy was keeping a secret, asked if she were expecting. She said no.
So you're going to appear on Shindig. This taping is going to appear on September the 1st here on ABC.
Uh-huh.
What numbers do you sing on it?
Oh, I do You Can't Sit Down and You Better Come Home and Trouble. It's fun.
You never did sing before, though, did you?
No, I've studied, and I've been singing now for 6 weeks.
You think there might be a confliction?
No, because I'm staying in town. I'm staying with Vince.
Oh, you are? No divorces, nothing like that.
Oh, are you kidding?
Well, it's Hollywood, you never know. You get along pretty good together then, huh?
Of course.
You've been happy for 2 months? How long did you know Vince before you married him?
Almost 2 years.
Last night, Kathy was rehearsing a song called Troubles, but today she did more than just sing about them. Now, remember her words moments ago. Vince asked about a divorce, and she said, "Are you kidding?" Well, she had a secret, because this afternoon in Superior Court, she filed for divorce against television's Dr. Ben Casey, Mr. Vince Edwards, the subject of a divorce action. We understand that more rioting has broken out, and Molotov cocktails are being brought into play more and more. And the rioters on the scene are throwing these cocktails, fiery bombs, at the automobiles of Negroes as well as whites in the area, peripherally. And it is just foolish for anyone to attempt any sort of venturing in the section, regardless of race. Molotov cocktails reported from several sectors. Let's see. The entire southeast corner of 113th and Avalon at this moment is in flames. 4 stores are going up now. And some of these were stores that earlier today were boarded up so that the windows could be preserved. But now that glass is gone, and even the wood used in the boarding is just adding to the heat of the flames. The rioters are breaking in and setting additional fires. There's one, not a bright note, but there's been a wise move taken. They're concerned about persons who would like to leave the area, because persons in the area who live there or who have business there don't necessarily have views that coincide with those of the rioters. A great many persons would like to get out, but where can they go? So there is this information. The Emergency Housing Committee for Watts announces a center for refugees has been set up at the Zion Baptist Church, 8401 South Avalon Street. And help will be offered to persons who are being driven out of the area or who would like to go. Shelter can be found for them tonight. I do not know who... This is information from a committee spokesman. We don't have a telephone number. I'm sorry we don't. Perhaps lines are working to the Zion Baptist Church at 8401 South Avalon Street, and persons who would be affected or be interested in making a move to there tonight should call the church first or somehow contact authorities who are coordinating this emergency refuge for persons living in the area. We'll have bulletins throughout the night. Hope you'll join us for our late news at 11.